Question 1. Graph the following equation. Y equals 3x minus 6. Okay, so I'm going to use my notes here on how to graph an equation. And I see the first step is to identify and plot the y-intercept. So looking at my equation here, y equals 3x minus 6, I remember that famous equation, y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope, b is the y-intercept. So if I see a subtraction sign here, I can think of this as plus negative 6, which means b, my y-intercept, in this case, is negative 6. So I've identified it, and I'm going to plot the y-intercept on the y-axis at negative 6. And then I'm going to use my slope of 3 to generate two more coordinates. So I know my slope is 3. And I prefer when slope's in a fraction. So I'm using step 2 here, identify and use slope to plot two coordinates. We have the slope is positive, so we're going to go up and to the right. And as we said, we want a fraction, so I'm going to put it over 1 so I don't change its value. So I know to go up 3, right 1 to generate two more points. And I'm going to use the y-intercept as where to start. Up 1, 2, 3, over 1. 1 point. Up 1, 2, 3, over 1. And once I have 3 coordinates, or 3 points, I'm going to finish it off by using step 3 here to use a ruler to graph the line. So it's a nice straight line going all the way through the graph. And since this is linear, we know it's not going to stop. It's a constant rate of change. So I draw my little arrows there, and I check it out. Negative 6, that's where it's starting. My slope is positive, so I have a increasing line. And the slope of 3 is going to tell me my line should be pretty steep, and that looks pretty steep, so I'm all set with question 1. Moving on to question 2, we want to now work backwards. How to write the equation of the following graph. Okay. So I'm going to use my notes again here to help me with question 2. And I notice my first step, kind of like my first step for how to graph an equation. I want to find the y-intercept on the graph. Okay? And I know that that is the point where the line hits the y-axis. So I see that the line here hits right here, which tells me it hits at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, counting by ones here. So this is a y value of 1. Which means if I'm starting to write my equation, I know that the y-intercept is going to be 1. Now I'm going to find those two pretty points. I already have one, so I can choose any other one that I see here, and this looks like a great point. And that is the coordinate 1, right here. That is the coordinate 1, comma, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. 1, negative 3. And we know our y-intercept here is 0, up, left and right 0, comma, 1. And I'm going to actually use the second step 3 here. I like to make a right triangle and count the change in y, make that in my numerator, and the change in x, I'm going to make that value in my denominator for my slope here. So, here's my right triangle, and let's see how I did that. I went down 1, 2 spaces, 3, and 4. So that was down 4, which I know is negative. And I went over 1 space. So So my change in y, how I changed the y axis, is I went down 1, 2, 3, 4. So my change in y was down 4. My change in x went from 0 to positive 1. That's a change of positive 1. So my equation is y equals negative 4 over 1x plus 1, which I can rewrite as, to make it look a little bit neater, y equals negative 4x plus 1.